Hello and welcome everyone to the 12th episode of A Better Magic podcast brought to you by Team BetterMagic out of Indianapolis, Indiana. This is your host Jared and I am joined today by my buddy Nick Cassidy. Say hi, Nick.
Hey everybody, what's up?
What's new with you, Nick? What's been going on in your life?
Work and being sick.
I understand. I have yet to be sick, but I'm working like a dog, so things are good. I haven't had a ton of chances to play Magic lately, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on, man. I'm really excited to talk about it today.
I am too.
So, super exciting. Modern Masters 2015 landed last a week. We got a bit of a chance to play it ourselves at our local shop, and there this last weekend we are podcasting on a Monday. So this last weekend, there were count them, three venues for Modern Masters 2015 GPs, and the venue in Las Vegas, Nevada, had so many players that they actually broke into two GPs. So there were actually four Grand Prix events for Modern Masters 2015 this weekend, and it was pretty awesome. It was the coverage was really cool, and there's a lot of product going into the market, which means there's going to be a lot more people playing Modern, which is super exciting. What do you think?
That's the hopes, of course. You're when you release a set of this hype, you
Hmm.
hope that people are just willing to throw out hundreds of dollars in hopes of making a modern deck that, in retrospect, is not supported too greatly as far as tournament wise compared to standard and limited.
That's true too, but I mean, like you were saying, the hope is that if there's enough of this product, though, it kind of lowers that barrier to entry for all these people who want to explore the format. And I mean, there were so many people there, and the events were so big that I would be hard pressed to believe that there isn't going to be a really big kind of surge of players into this format. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that, modern as a format is growing.
Hmm.
Um, there's over 90,000 packs of Magic opened just in
Yeah,
Vegas alone.
that was
And
insane. Yeah.
and we haven't even taken into account Utrecht and Shiba. So we can it's safe to say over 100,000 packs were opened this weekend of just modern and not even like and that's just for the main event.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a tweet. We're friends with some of the guys who are in. If you listen to some of the other Magic podcasts in the heavy meta, SVU community, and a lot of guys at Brainstorm Brewery we're friends with, and they were saying, doing some math and at side events alone, just in Vegas in the side events, there were like what 15, 20,000 packs opened,
Oh, that's
just in like
crazy.
supplemental events, not even the actual event itself. So there's a big flood of that product into the market. So like I said, we're going to go through some of those GPs as we get deeper into the podcast and kind of talk about the format as a whole. And I know we talked a little bit about some of the spoiler cards, and I'm not too excited about a lot of the cards that were printed, but the format itself, like the limited environment, is actually a decent one to play in. I don't think it's that bad. But so
I
anyway,
just
so we're gonna talk a little bit about that, but what did you want to say, man?
I just realized there's probably over 10,000 crystal brands that were thrown out there this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. I know they do have a cap, though. I mean, I've been to GPs where like I was really lucky. In 2011, there was a Grand Prix in Indy for I believe it was just when Return to Ravnica first came out, and I know I was like one of the first people in line because I was working downtown. I just walked over like that Thursday morning and got myself signed up. But I know there were people who were at that event that played and did not get the promo Primeval Titan or a playmat. So I mean, there is a certain number of actual physical cards they can give away, and I guarantee you, with them setting a world record for the most players at a Magic the Gathering event, there's no way everybody got a Grizzlebrand. Like, no way.
I mean, you can just start seeing $10 Gristle brand promos or $5.
There's no
Just
way though, because like I said, there's a cap, right? I mean, there were only so many. So out of those 10,000 people, who knows if even maybe 20% of them were served? Who knows if even 20 or maybe 30% of them even got Grizzlebrands? I don't know.
yeah, who knows? I mean, I'm assuming Wizards, was prepared for something like of this magnitude of having packs and cards are available in playmats.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. I know everyone was really excited about it, but Wizards, has also in the past shown that they're not necessarily on top of the ball, all the time. Like even if all the hype around, from some of the Channel Fireball guys talking about how huge these events were going to be, who knows if Wizards actually bought into that and actually printed enough of what they needed to serve the masses. Like they are relatively conservative when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, another cool number. Uh, there is approximately uh 9,000 booster boxes opened too
That's insane. Yeah, that's just totally crazy.
at $240 a pop.
Yeah, that's bonkers. I don't know what it actually costs for vendors to buy one. I mean, that's something we're going to get into a little bit later. So, but that's don't let me forget. Let's make sure we talk about that. But as far as stuff we're going to talk about today, before we dive into it, there's some interesting updates coming to this podcast, coming to the content that we're going to be providing you guys as a team. Some Team Better Magic branded both audio, video, and written content that we plan on bringing your way. There's some really exciting changes that are going to come here in the next couple weeks, so we're going to be talking about that for sure. Of course, we'll do a crack a pack. There's about 6 weeks left before Origins releases, so that means you'll have 6 Friday Night Magics where if that's something you're allowed to do at your FNM, we've got that many more weeks to draft Dragons of Tarkir. And again, we talked just briefly about what's going on with Magic, or excuse me, with Modern Masters 2015, but we'll dive a little bit deeper. And then to round things out, we'll talk a little bit of finance. Does that sound exciting to you?
This sounds pretty exciting to me.
All right, cool. Um, do you want to let the kind people know about what the heck is going on with our podcast and some exciting plans that you have for bringing them new types of content?
Yeah, so um, we're always looking to expand and uh, make our podcast better and better every week that we do it. And we are finally, with it being summer, we're all out working and we don't have to worry about other things besides that. And we're hoping that this summer we can grow tremendously by um, putting out our podcast on iTunes and the equivalent version of Android. We're also looking towards finally working on the website that we own, and finally working on a logo, long anticipated logo.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
so
So
we're
really, a whole new branding initiative is really what we're going to push for this summer, right?
yeah.
Cool. And the most exciting thing to come from this, though, I know you and I have been talking about it for a couple weeks, is the fact that we want to make some quick and fast changes to the way we do this podcast. I know originally it's a learning process, and I know we've done a bit of sculpting with how we deliver this content to you guys. Originally, this podcast was going to be bringing on as many people from the team, as we could, and talking about kind of what's new and kind of bill it as a a magic news podcast, right? And that was interesting, but it kind of sucks to make that content when there's nothing going on during the week. Like it's really, really difficult to come up with new things to talk about if you're in one of these kind of elongated, stagnant periods in Magic the Gathering, which happens, kind of seasonally. Um, so what happened is, we changed it so it would just be myself and either Jeremy or Nick talking about, about half of the podcast on Limited and half of the podcast on Constructed Magic. But it turned out it's difficult to get us all together, and I'm not truly all that interested in Constructed Magic. And, driving the train, I kind of take a back seat when it comes to bringing you that kind of content. And I know that's not the absolute best type 2 in particular content that we can bring to you guys. So the idea came about, and I think we're going to go ahead with it. And it sounds really exciting. But the format of this podcast is really going to be changing to really talking about the best limited and financial Magic the Gathering strategy we can possibly bring you guys um, as often as we can get these podcasts out. And on the heels of that, hopefully the plan is to very soon bring you an entire Better Magic or Team Better Magic podcast dedicated to constructed Magic. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Nick?
Yeah, so since Jared's not really that big of a constructed person,
Yeah, no thank
um,
you.
I am going to be being the MC for this podcast, and hopefully with Jeremy and possibly another couple guests on the podcast, and we'll just be bringing to you constructed ideas. We're really going to throw in a bunch of deck brewing, ideas. Like for example, making decks over around like silly cards and such that may actually be a breakthrough deck and whatnot.
Sweet.
um, we're just it's a more casual, if anything, podcast that we're just trying to grab the attention of our casuals out there, and who knows, maybe we'll expand to even more sets besides just standard and modern. Maybe we'll see some EDH, and if the format ever takes off, tiny leaders.
Ooh, now that would be interesting. I have yet to see someone play a game of Tiny Leaders.
I
I
think
just
I've
have not seen it.
I've seen Jeremy play tiny leaders on like before FNMs, but like that's about as major as it gets. Like, unfortunately, I'm sad that this very hyped up format never really took off. But with that in mind, you have foils that were very tiny leader prone are finally starting to come down, which are making it more affordable for
That's
my cube.
that's totally true. I mean, that format got so much hype right out the gate, and it sounded really cool. And I think it would still be really fun to play, but I mean, go into any shop and yell into the back room and say, "Does anyone want to play Tiny Leaders?" And no one's gonna answer you. I mean, it's just it's rough on the financial market when because Magic is a game, right? And if people don't want to spend money on things to make a deck that no one's gonna play, no, you're not gonna have people available to play with. Like it just doesn't make any sense, right? Like there's no utility in that. So I think we've seen that because it wasn't adopted as quickly or as powerfully as people thought it would be. You're right. Prices are beginning to come down, and that is so very apparent, and it's too bad. I mean, I thought the format was kind of cool, because I'm not a huge EDH fan, but I felt like Tiny Leaders was something I could get behind. But like I said, if there's nobody to play with, it's not worth my time or my money. So
Yeah. I'm actually curious how even tiny leaders became a thing. Like, was someone just like, oh, what's fun with limited and constructed at the same time? Oh, let's make tiny leaders.
yeah, like
This
a 40
random.
card deck and limitations on what you can put in your deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know it took off like on Reddit, just again because it's a really cool idea, and someone shared the site that has all the rules and the ban lists and stuff, and it took off for a little bit. But again, nobody other than the people who troll Reddit, really took it on as a format. So I guess
I
that's
mean,
saying something.
if the format wants, if if you want to see something, serious and make tiny leaders a thing, all Wizards has to do, or any of the big name vendors such as Star City Games or Channel Fireball has to do, is just back it with a tournament.
Totally true.
All
Yeah.
it needs is on air attention, and it's like a massive thing of dominoes. Just let it take off on it, and then everything else will do its own thing.
Right. You're 100% right. I mean, putting it in the spotlight is the best thing anyone could do. But we'll see if the big brand names are smart enough to make that kind of change, or if they even want to. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's that valuable for them to do that. I mean, Wizards was obviously smart enough to realize that Commander, or excuse me, that EDH was valuable enough to buy. Um, I think it would be very difficult to convince them that Tiny Leaders is something valuable to buy.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still waiting on a GP cube.
Oh my God, they did it. When the heck did they do it? It wasn't a GP, but wasn't it one of the? Maybe it was a GP. Like you cut to top 8 and then you got to Holiday Cube. Ah, crap. I'll have to go look it up. But if you're listening to this podcast, you can go find it on magic.wizards.com. I know they've got an article about it where I guess it wasn't a GP.
I know it was. I know there is a holiday cube for the like 2012 Players Championship.
Yeah,
Because
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
because they like those is like one of the first on air, live
Yeah.
recorded things, and they were watching who was it? Um, Reed Duke
Yeah.
draft cube, and it was Marshall Sutcliffe and I don't think it was Randy Beeler. It may have been Randy, but I think it was Randy's cube
Oh
that
yeah.
they basically did it off of. But
That's so
needless to
sweet.
say, yeah, it's on YouTube. It's like 2012 top 8 or
Sure, that makes
cube
sense.
players championship, but it's awesome. I like it. Like
But
it makes me like realize like how different cubes have changed in a matter of 3 years.
oh, totally. I mean, and they're always changing. That's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing about Q too. So anyway, enough of that. We are proud to announce that you're going to be making a really awesome constructed podcast for people who aren't necessarily interested in limited or finance to listen to. And this podcast is going to allow us to be even more focused on just bringing you the absolute highest level of information we can on how to improve your limited game and how to make your game more affordable by giving you decent finance tips. And I'm really excited and happy for this change, and I hope you are too.
I am too. I just with great feedback and everything, we can make it a great podcast.
Yeah, no question. I mean, there's nothing more valuable to us than your guys' feedback. I mean, shoot us an email at playbettermagic@gmail.com if you ever want us to read through your questions or let us know, what you like or what we could do better. Come up to us in person if you're someone who knows us. Find us on Twitter. I'm at Jared Jewett. That's all one word, JARREDJUETT. Nick, you're what are you? Who are you?
Who am I? I am at N Cassidy 18, NCASSIDY 18.
Perfect. Yeah, and never hesitate to tweet one of us, both of us, and let us know how you feel. That's better than even donating us money at this point. Just knowing what you want is the most valuable thing you can give us. So we really appreciate it. Um, okay, so let's dive in here, and with this brand new focus on Unlimited, I know we're going to spend a lot of the podcast talking about Modern Masters 2015, but don't forget that Dragons of Tarkir still exists for 6 more weeks. This is what you will be drafting at your Friday Night Magic, if that's something that you do at your Friday Night Magic. So, I mean, let us not forget.
6 weeks. I'm sorry, but like I don't know how many weeks we've drafted this, but
Already, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but can you imagine that Wizards just consciously said, we're going to have this third set be out and drafted for like 20 weeks? Like, that's
Ugh.
insane. And then, I mean, obviously someone in there was saying, oh, well, hey, we have the supplemental Modern Masters 2015 product coming out. We have a Tempest Remastered coming out. Surely people will love those enough for it to break up the monotony, right? Like that had to have been the argument in R&D, right? Because it couldn't have been anything else. It's ridiculous for a company that makes their money with innovation and new products not to come out with a new products every 20 weeks, right? Like, so the only valid argument is that, oh, we've got these other things that people want to play just as much, if not more. But what sucks is that Tempest Remastered kind of was terrible. Like, it was
Yeah.
really not that good. So people didn't play that, and they're like, well, okay, I guess we're still stuck with Dragons, right? And then Modern Masters 2015 came out, and it is prohibitively expensive. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but no one is playing it other than maybe one or two drafts because it is so expensive, and there's not a ton of value in it. There's still good stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's not as overwhelmingly apparent, in its value as like the original Modern Masters was. So now people are disillusioned with Modern Masters 2015, and what do they say? Well, heck, I mean, I guess the only thing we can do is continue to draft Dragons of Tarkir, and it's just ugh. It's just a slog, man.
It's boring.
It's boring. I mean, we're just inundated with the same thing, and the format is more or less quote unquote figured out.
In
You
a
know,
world
like
in a world where you can draft a great Dragon the Tarkir deck and still lose to a siege is just to me is just makes me sad.
I mean, that's one argument. I'll give you that for sure, right? But when you only get to draft, it's so much different when you only get to draft a set because of the way the cycles work. Every 3 months, so it's 3 times 4. So you get to draft it 10 times, okay? Like on paper, or excuse me, in paper. If every Friday Night Magic you do that, maybe so after 10 drafts, a good format is still not figured out. Okay, um, a decent format is getting close at 10 drafts. A bad format is figured out in like 5 drafts, right? So like a gate crash draft where all you wanted to do is draft all the 2 drops and kill your opponent in 3 turns. Like that was figured out, people figure that out right away. But a good format after 10 drafts, no one will figure it out, okay? I would say Dragons of Tarkir is not a bad format and not a good format, but a decent format. And after drafting it like 26 times, it is most surely figured out and super boring. Does that make sense? I mean, because the best draft formats of all time, which we're talking about like Innistrad, right, or Rise of the Eldrazi, you could draft those like 100 times, 150, 200 times, and basically always come away with a powerful new deck that you are still exploring and figuring things out in, right? But Dragons of Tarkir is nowhere close to that. And you're right. One of the reasons is, you're talking about how you can just lose to a siege, which the rares in Fey Reforged, which is the set that Dragons of Tarkir is drafted with, just the overwhelming powers of those rares are kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, they're not very balanced out. So, I mean, to add insult to injury, not only are we bored with a format that we can figure out because we get to figure it out over the course of like 26 weeks, we also have to deal with the fact that it's unbalanced. And that compounded um, issue just makes it not any fun. I mean, I,
No.
I, I don't I hope I've been clear so far, but it's just it sucks, man.
Yeah. I cannot agree more. Um, it's just I would give it a decent I'd give it a decent draft. Like it was fun drafting it,
Yeah,
but as far as balance as wise as in the power, it's just so unbalanced.
fine.
And I just always just want to say, look at Khans of Tarkir. Like
Yeah,
even as many times as we have drafted it, like it seemed like we were always drafting some type of new color formation.
yeah,
And I enjoyed it. The complexity was, way up there, which made
always
drafting
fun.
it. But this one just is, it just sort of reminds me of just Fate Reforged drafting where it was, oh, you just draft one of the sieges or draft a rare and then like you just win the game off that rare.
Perhaps. I mean, I think Fate Reforged is way worse. The you're right about cons, right? So I drafted that at least 100 times, and every single time I had a new deck, and I always felt like I could really figure out what my opponent was on, and it was a more mid-rangey format. And there was just so much to do, and it was always different. It was really fun. That was actually, I would consider that one of my top 10 draft formats of all time, like no question. Maybe not top 5, but top 10 for sure. Um, and then Fate Reforged was terrible because it really was just the rare that you drafted. You're 100% right. So when Fate Reforged was your first booster pack, it just totally sucked. Um, in Dragons of Tarkir, that's a factor, but if you're drafting like the blue-black deck and then you get a Citadel Siege, like there's a good chance you're not playing that Citadel Siege. So I don't know if it's as if it's as overbearing as it was when Fate was your first pack. But the thing I don't like about it is there are really 3 decks you can play. There are really 3 decks you can play and win consistently, and that's black-red, blue-black, and to a lesser extent red-green. Right? I mean, that's just it. I mean, that's just how it is. Like all the color combinations are draftable, and most of them you can do decent with. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you can build basically any deck and by the numbers do fine. But I guarantee you, if you were to do the math on however many hundreds of thousands of drafts have fired, you would see that the vast majority of them are won by those 3 decks that I mentioned, and that's not good. Like that does not make for a good draft format. Period. That's just that's the end of the story. But okay, enough of us kind of on that soapbox. And with all those things in mind, please know that I think good drafting is about drafting the best you can at your seat, but going into a draft with the knowledge that those 3 decks are the best decks to play. Um, that knowledge can kind of tinge your picks. So just be aware of that going into it. And I would not fault you for drafting like a black or a red card over maybe another card that you might think is more powerful, just because in the over the entirety of that draft you have a higher percent chance to win if you build a better deck or in those color combinations. So Are you ready to open this pack?
Of course, I'm always ready
Always ready. Okay,
for
here we
cracking
go.
packs.
Dragons of Tarkir, 15 card booster pack. This one's got a Tarka on the front. Dragon Lord of Tarka is a 7 mana 8/8. So let's see if we open that. Oh, you hear that? Oh yeah. Can smell that
Apparently,
new pack.
apparently, smelling the Modern Master ones just didn't smell like anything.
Oh yeah, doesn't that suck? So the Modern Masters, before we look at this, the Modern Masters 2015 packs, by the way, if you haven't seen one yet, they're in these small square cardboard packages and they're glued together. So and there's a little bit of space for like the cards to shake around. So a lot of people opening booster packs had really messed up, kind of dinged up rares, which sucks. And then because there's all that air and the ability for the air to escape, your cards don't smell like anything, man. That sucks. Like the best part of opening a booster pack is smelling your awesome cards. Ah, it smells so good. Okay. The assumption is that if you're listening to this, you know what the majority of these cards do. So I'm not going to read through most of them except for the ones that I think we might pick. So just keeping that in mind. We have a Dragon Fodder. No, thank you.
Nope.
People tend to play this card and take it higher than I ever would. I have yet to play one of these in limited. I just don't think it's good.
I played one, but that was back when I was like the one time I was able to run like mono red.
Sure. I mean,
So that's like,
I think if you're playing mono red, I guess, yeah, but I think this
yeah,
card's terrible.
no,
Um,
that's fine.
there's no good like trumpet blast cards except for like the uncommon +2/+1 card.
Yeah,
Um, Glaring Aegis, no thank you. Sometimes people play like one of them, but no thank you. Good old Marsh Hulk.
yeah.
Not really interested in that as a
I'm
first
like,
pick.
I like it, but it's definitely not first pickable.
Definitely not. Lose Calm, no thank you. Sandstep Scavenger, I have never resolved one of these, and I plan not to. I think paying 5 mana for a 2/2 that's maybe a 4/4 is really bad. We're not going to do that. Updraft Elemental, card's filler, but it's serviceable. Shape the Sands, one of my favorite combat tricks from the sideboard. It's a good way to just get them, because usually makes your guy not die to a dragon. Um, Ojutai Summons, I think the card's still powerful. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's better than any of the powerful red or black spells, but it's still okay. Here we go. Sprinting Warbrute.
Ooh.
Yeah, that guy's good. So if 4 colorless, 1 red for a 5/4 Ogre Berserker. He attacks each turn if able. So paying 5 mana for a 5/4 is already on curve. That's really good. But you get to dash him for 3 colorless and a red and smack your opponent for 5. That's very difficult for them to block. So that guy's really good. That
Definitely my pick right now.
definitely pick for sure right now. Ancestral Statue, no thank you. Um, Calcisma Behemoth. This is an interesting pick. Okay, so Calcisma Behemoth is 2 colorless and a red for a 5/5, which sounds amazing. But there's a catch. You have to pay 2 generic mana um, if you want to either block or attack with this guy. So
Uh,
that's definitely prohibitive. Um, Encase in Ice, which is all the pros say, I don't know if I've ever done it, but it's the most main deckable hoser card in the format. So if you're in blue, it's 1 colorless and a blue for an enchantment aura with flash, so you can play it at instant speed. You would chant a red or a green creature, so that's the catch. And when it enters the battlefield, you tap the creature, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So it's a claustrophobia, but for 2 mana, and you could only hit a red or a green creature. So I don't know if I would ever be able to first pick that over just like a creature that attacks, but I don't
yeah.
know. Deadly Wanderings. I like that card better than most people do. Have you ever played it?
No, I have never played it.
Oh, the card's so sweet, dude. Like in the dash deck, once you run out of options, your opponent usually doesn't play a lot of enchantment removal, if any, at all, right? So like what it does is it makes all of your draws that are creatures much more of a live draw once you if you've gotten into more of the mid-range or late game stages. Um, of any sort of mid-range matchup. So like if you're in the red-black deck and it's like turn 5, 6, or 7, and your 2/2s are just worthless now, like this card lets you get back into those games because all of a sudden you got one big threat on the board that has +2, +0, and Death Touch and Lifelink. So it just makes those games much more winnable where they otherwise wouldn't be, is kind of how I see it. I don't necessarily know. I think at all that it's a first pick over some of these, but it's interesting. Um, and then a Dragon Tempest is our rare, so that card is just completely unplayable. Um, so let me put aside. Okay, so let's put aside Ojutai Summons, Encase in Ice, Calcisma Behemoth, and Sprinting Warbrute, because I think we agree that none of the others are good, right?
No.
Yeah. So what do you think here?
It's gotta be Spring Warbrute.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. Like, there's an argument to be made that the Calcisma Behemoth can do more stuff in the first, like, 2 or 3 turns of the game, I guess. Excuse me. Um, but, at the end of the day, would you rather have a 5-man or a 3-mana 5/5 that can't do anything unless you put 2 mana into it every turn, right? Or on turn 4 being able to just attack with a 5/4?
I like swinging for 5 and
Yeah,
on turn 4, and I hate having to spend mana just to do something with a creature that's just sitting there not able to do anything. Like
totally.
you're already losing the race as is,
Sure.
um, and
It
having to dump additional mana just makes it worse.
Because you're 100% right. Because what it does on like your 4th turn, for instance, is it doesn't let you play. It usually doesn't let you play another impactful spell on turn 4, right? Or like even by turn 5, it's very difficult for you to be able to activate this guy and still play another spell that matters. And in this deck, you start getting to a point where you need to be playing 2 spells every round. So you need to be able to play like a creature on your turn and remove one of their guys on their turn, right? Like you need the mana in that version of the black red deck to really be able to interact with what's going on. And Calcisma Behemoth just is prohibitive and it stops you from being able to do that. And um, that's such a crucial part of being able to win in the mid and late game um, with that deck that playing this guy is just so unfavorable over like sprinting a Warbrute on 4, attacking for 5, right? And maybe they block with a dude. Okay, great. So you spent 4 mana to like flatten, basically. And then the next turn, you could just play this guy. And now you got a 5/4 that can block for that turn. And then on the next turn, of course, it has to attack. But who cares? You have all your mana up and you're attacking with a 5/4, right? Um, that's just really, really, really good.
Yeah,
How do you feel about Ojutai summons?
not for first pick, no.
Sure. I mean, I love Ojutai summons. Like, I think the white blue deck is actually not even that good. Like, it's maybe like the 5th or 6th best deck in my opinion. But it's probably the best card in that deck. And I don't think you're unhappy having it in like a blue-red deck, maybe, that's taking advantage of like using spot removal to get rid of their guys and then use this to just put 4 power in the air. Like, that's pretty good. Um, but yeah, in no scenario in my mind is it better than a 5/4 that's attacking. I mean,
Yeah.
but so this was actually a really really good pick to kind of illustrate what you and I were talking about before. Is that the format is so stale that you and I know, like you and I instantly said, boom, Sprinting Warbrute, black red, most powerful deck in the format. That's easily the pick, right? Like it was very difficult in my mind. I don't know if I'm speaking for you, but in my mind, it was so easy to look at that card and pick it and say, no question. Like there has to be like a mythic rare for us to not be picking Sprinting Warbrute.
Like, there's only a few exceptions where I would pick, something over Sprinting Warbrute in that pack. Like, an Ultimate Price would do it.
Sure. What about
Uh,
Flatten?
a Flatten. I would take the Flatten over
Yeah.
removal. You just can't go wrong with a removal spell.
Sure. Me too.
Or Deathwind, I think, is another one that I would just pick over
Do you think
Sprinting
Deathwind scales better than Sprinting Warbrute though? And say, no question. Like there has to be like a mythic rare for us to not be picking Sprinting Warbrute.
Like, there's only a few exceptions where I would pick, something over Sprinting Warbrute in that pack. Like, an Ultimate Price would do it.
Sure. What about
Uh,
Flatten?
a Flatten. I would take the Flatten over
Yeah.
removal. You just can't go wrong with a removal spell.
Sure. Me too.
Or Deathwind, I think, is another one that I would just pick over.
Do you think
Sprinting
Deathwind scales better than Sprinting Warbrute though?
Uh, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I
Like,
think that's actually a tough pick.
like the thing about it is that yes, you got a sweet piece of removal,
Yeah.
but if you don't see that, that war brute that your opponent has yet,
Yeah.
and you're already down on, trying to progress your board, unable to play Deathwind,
Yeah.
and that war brute just comes out, I mean, are you randomly just gonna, completely skip your turn just so that he may play something like that?
Totally. Yeah.
And that's where the real, the complexity of it goes. And I think Warbrute's better in that case. Um, you've always said that creatures always win the game, and in this case scenario, I think the creature wins in this case.
Yeah. That you're 100% right. I mean, that's kind of the uh, the conundrum that I have is like like Deathwind's good. I don't think it's as good as a Flatten. Flatten actually is just a better rate because it costs 5 mana for Deathwind to do what Flatten does at 4 mana.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, exactly what you said. Like a Warbrute attacking for 5 on 4 just has to be most of the time more powerful than trying to play around like their uncommon removal. You know, I I don't know, but I think that's a very controversial pick, and I might just take the Sprinting Warbrute because I also, all things considered, I also like the green-red deck, and I think it fits well there. Whereas if you're taking a Deathwind, like, yeah, it's actually not that good in the red-black deck because you need it to be reactive instead of proactive, and the deck just wants to be
Mm-hmm.
proactive. It's much better in the blue-black deck, and that's really, really good too. But I'd rather take the red card and put myself on two good decks that I know I want to play, excuse me, versus the black card that is only in one deck that I know I want to play. So I don't know, just kind of playing the odds there.
And like, you don't have to be an aggressive deck to play Sprinting Warbrute.
Totally.
Like, just think of it as a 4 mana 5/4,
Yeah.
and like your opponent has to do something about it
Yeah.
because nobody wants to take 5 points of damage, and that's a fourth of your life already, not assuming that you're playing up against an aggressive deck that's already swung in for 2 4 points already of damage.
Hmm.
And it's just it's unexpected too,
Yeah.
because who wants to see your opponent, I mean, have one or two creatures on the board that do 2 or 4 power, and you have nobody on the board, and you're just like, oh, I'm fine taking 4, and then holy shit, it becomes 9.
All of a sudden there's a 5/4. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
it's a five
bonkers.
four.
Yeah. It's so hard to play around Dash too because you shouldn't, right? Like as a good, this is awesome that we're talking about this because this is really what this podcast should be, what we're trying to teach you guys, as listeners, and with this newer focus on limited, this is actually a great discussion. Because you're right. You should never play around the fact that they might have a dash guy, right? Because good limited teaches you that you very much should be playing around the fact that they might have a removal spell for your creatures and for your best creatures in particular, right? So good strategy, good training teaches you that you can play your worst guys out first because over the long run they can continue to attack and that damage adds up, right? Like it's guaranteed damage turn after turn after turn unless they deal with it. Okay, where um, where it, if you are trying to play around the fact that they might have a dash guy, what you're doing is not progressing your board. Usually is what it means, and you're usually holding up mana for a removal spell, right? So if they don't have a dash guy, what you're doing is you're giving them extra turns to draw better cards, right? But that's what makes dash so good is because, of course, a good opponent is not going to play around Dash. And that means you get to just play your Dash guys, like, for free, because they're not going to hold up mana for removal, usually, or at least not in the early stages of the game where your Dash guys count, right? So you should, like, always be dashing those guys out in the first couple of turns where it matters, and then sticking them later so your opponent then wastes turns later on in the game using their removal spells instead of spending their mana progressing their board, and it helps you just get so much further ahead so much quicker. Um, Now, I hope that was a decent explanation, but I mean, that's really what makes Dash so powerful.
And even progressing your board against it, like, you can even try, but when
Yeah.
that 5/4 hits the floor,
What are you going to do? Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna waste, your entire turn playing, I mean, from playing two creatures just to lose it to a 5/4.
Yeah.
But in the retrospect, you want to keep your two, your two guys on the field, but
Yeah.
then take 5 points of damage. It's a massive conundrum. And you just got to get rid of it immediately, but you feel horrible for getting, 2-for-1s.
And that's what makes it so beautiful too, right? Because you dash out a 5/4, and your opponent's like, well, now I have this knowledge, and they have to like play around the fact that at any point you could cast a 5/4 for 4 mana, which is crazy, right? Because not only on their turn they're going to do whatever to try to play around that, you then get another turn to draw a new card that could be anything, right? So you've put the fear in them with that one card that they know you have in your hand. But heck, you might have another 3 or 4 cards just sitting around their hand, and now they have no idea what those are. So it makes it's just such a difficult card to play around. And I would say most of the Dash guys are like that, except for the ones that have like 1 toughness maybe. But
Martyr Scout.
yeah, like Mardu
But that,
Scout. But even
but
then, I
that,
mean, he's a removal spell, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, like Mardu Scout still gets in for at least 3 points of damage
yeah,
every game.
or just kills a dude, or just remove something that they didn't want to be removed, and you just 1-for-1 them, and that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
it could be worse. You could just have like 2 Mardu Scouts dashed and you're just like, and your opponent's just like Twin Bolt.
yeah. I mean that you're right. I mean that happens every now and then. But you bring up another great point. Like think how often that is the corner case versus how often you are like going to either clear stuff off their board or deal them 6 damage, right? And much more of the time you are just going to be at such a huge advantage there.
Yeah.
And
Like
it's just bonkers.
I love it. I love red. I hate, going in week in, week out, just accidentally making red black, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way now too. Limited resources. Their last podcast was about kind of the mistakes that you can make and the traps you can fall into, as far as drafting and building your deck and playing. Um, but I would argue, and here I'm going to say it here. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second, but I would argue that if the format is figured out, then one of the traps that they say is accidentally forcing a deck that you think is the best, right? And I get that, and I understand the principle, and I would agree 99.9% of the time, right? But this 0.1% of the time where this Dragons of Tarkir format we've been playing for 26 weeks or whatever, and is completely figured out, like the fact that we're going to be forcing, without even thinking about it, we're going to be forcing red black, blue black, and red green so much more often is, in my mind, just correct. Like I think it's actually just right because we believe those cards to be more powerful. They've proven themselves to be more powerful. And it may look like you're accidentally forcing those, but I don't think you are. I mean, I'm going to say it here. I think it is just right to do that in this format. And there have been formats like that in the past. I mean, it's not something that's terribly new. Um, like in Torment, for instance, you just wanted to draft all the best black cards. Tempest was much the same way. You just wanted all the best black cards. There were some formats where like you would never touch green, for instance, because it was like the worst format. Or M14, like you should be forcing mono blue in that format. That's just how it was. If you weren't doing that, you were just doing it wrong. Um, and again, so in that small percent of corner cases, which I very much believe Dragons of Tarkir is, um, you, you should be drafting red black, blue black, or red green. And if you're not, you're either got an amazing seat, right, and amazing picks for some other combination, more power to you, or you're doing it wrong.
yeah, like it just happens unfortunately that way in some cases where you're just like that.
And yeah, and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, those are just the numbers, and I'm not upset. I'm not really complaining. I'm just ready for something new.
Yeah.
And we've realized we've kind of figured out what we have to do to make it happen, and to kind of bring home the bacon in this format. And it just sucks that it's boring. You know,
Yeah.
that's it. But
I feel like it wouldn't be so bad if we were able to go to more tournaments and have higher levels of competition. Not saying like the competition at our GP at our LGS is low, but I feel like that just not being able to really grind,
yeah,
these limited decks just makes 3 rounds really boring and stale. And when you're playing with the same people who have the same habits or the same styles
the
of
same
gameplay, like
preconceived notions. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I agree 100%. Yeah.
So, um, we're always hoping that there's a GP near us, but sometimes we just can't make it happen.
That's true too. There is always Magic the Gathering online, bud. Like if you
Yeah,
get really bored, but I would argue the same thing happens there. I mean, I
yeah.
end up building the same decks and having the same kind of records, and that's just kind of how it is. But again, my overall frustration is the fact that this format's just so stale now. But a format that's not stale, and let's spend some time talking about, is Modern Masters 2015 is out, and the limited format itself is actually pretty well constructed and pretty interesting. There's a lot to be said about the value in this set and how much is lacking. But this last weekend, there were Grand Prix in the cities of Chiba in Japan, Utrecht in Germany, and Las Vegas. There are actually two Grand Prix in Las Vegas because they not only set a world record for the most Magic players at a tournament, but it was so big that they had to split the player pool right down the middle and turn it into two GPs, and that was super exciting. I got to watch a good bit of the coverage for these events, and it was pretty cool, man.
How many people actually showed up? What was the final number in Vegas?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. I have no clue, but I know it was over 7,500. Like I
I
know it
was,
was it was so close to 10,000.
yeah, like I was sort of thinking it may have reached like 8,000. I
Oh,
was
you
sort
think
of
it got
like,
that high? I don't know.
I think it was in the 7,800s, 7,900s. But like those are just people in the main event. Like how many people actually like just showed up and played? Like I know several of the people we followed just did it, like they signed up for it, but they didn't actually partake in it. They just sort of overslept.
Yeah, just like just totally insane, dude. And there were over so 3,600 players started in one half of the Mammoth Modern Masters weekend. So multiply that by two, and we've got
70, 73,
yeah,
74.
yeah, almost 7,400 players. That is bonkers. Like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine how many people, that is and how hot it probably got in that room and how much noise there was. Like, you just couldn't. It would be impossible to be focused. And only, it's kind of funny because the people who really made it to the top tables were all pros. And I think what that tells us about being a pro level player for Magic the Gathering is the fact that these guys really do have kind of the mental stamina, to deal with all of the how hot that room gets, how loud it is, how many rounds you have to play to keep up, and it's a really a testament to those players' ability to do that. Um, because again, both of the top eights for both those Vegas events were all pro players. So
One of the interesting things I learned about from the weekend was that one of the people we followed stated that it was the most women he's ever seen at a GP ever.
really, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if they were just there because it was Vegas, or are we starting to see more of a women population in Magic the Gathering? Um,
Hmm.
who knows? I can't. I have. There's nothing wrong with adding some more diversity in Magic because let's be honest, there's a lot of there's there's
A
too
lot of
many men in that room.
testosterone. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a really really good point. So I had heard that too, and I think that's a really great thing to talk about. Um, I would love to see more ladies, really improving the game. Yeah, not to be sexist here, but you know, ladies tend to bring a bit more politeness and a bit more manners to the entire environment, or at least it should be that way, right? More players. Seeing more women play should be more respectful of them, and I think again that only happens if more women are there actually playing the game. And I think that would be very good for the game. I can't tell, based on the numbers, if, like you said, if this is just because this is the largest GP of all time, which just means on volume, there's going to be more women than normal. I don't know. I would hope not. I would hope it would just be the fact that we're seeing more women adopt the game. Um, yeah, I just think it would be awesome. I think it would be
Yeah.
amazing. There's a couple high-profile, women who've really done a lot of great work for the game. Melissa DeTora in particular. Um, yeah,
Who's now an intern at R&D.
yeah. I mean, so really making waves. Um, Gabby Sparts has a stream and has joined the Channel Fireball team, and she's really interesting. And there was some coverage of her play over the weekend, and she was really doing a fantastic job. And has even written a bit about women kind of joining the game, and has done some good work there. Um, but yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that's a really cool statistic. I'm really happy for that, and I hope that trend continues to tick upward.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Magic the Gathering's a game for anybody who wants to play can play. I think Magic made another huge step. What was it? Fate Reforged when they came out with the created the first transgender um, card in Magic,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
people didn't find that a big deal, but it is a big deal.
Yeah.
Equality is a huge thing, and Magic the Gathering is embracing equality,
Yeah.
and they want anybody and anybody who wants to play in. And I'm absolutely ecstatic about that. I'm happy. I can't say the same for our city, but
Yeah, that's true. Indianapolis has a pretty rough track record for those kind of things, but
hashtag shots fired. But I'm all for it, and nobody should be discriminate of anybody else.
yeah, I mean, you're right because it's a game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, this is about bringing people who enjoy these kind of things together to have a good time, spending time with one another, right? It's not solitaire, like it is an interactive person-to-person game, and you lose a lot of that, the more exclusive you become. So having people, in this community that's really filled with people who are otherwise, outcast from the things they want to do, you know, Magic tends to attract a lot of the people who maybe don't feel like they're very comfortable socially. So it attracts a lot of those people, right? And then the game kind of celebrating those people through, you're right, creating cards like Ashiok, the Nightmare Weaver, who was the first kind of non-gendered character in Magic the Gathering, and then in or in Fate Reforged having
Alicia.
Alessia, right, which was actually a transgendered character, and representing those groups' needs, right, and giving them powerful characters to get behind, has been amazing for the game, right? It's a wonderful public relations play, and it's wonderful for their marketing, and it says a lot about the things Wizards are sensitive to, and I think it's all the right things, and the only thing guys like you and I can ask is that the community at large be accepting of those kind of changes, right? Like and fight for those changes, right? Because these people are fellow gamers like us, and they deserve just as much respect as we do, and they're only going to get that if A, we show the respect, and if B, we demand that respect of others, right? But but no, it's awesome. These are really cool topics for us to talk about. It's been awesome to see the game grow in these ways, and this last weekend, as you were pointing out, is just kind of a testament to that.
So hopefully, you know, in years to come, that this is just a bar
Oh
that
yeah.
will essentially get broken again. And compared to the last Modern Masters, it essentially doubled. Do you think that in the year and a half, 2 years, do you think we could see a double again? Maybe 15,000 Magic players?
Oh my
Does a
God, can you
convention
imagine?
can a convention such as Las Vegas even handle 15,000?
Can they handle 15,000 people? Maybe not, man. I don't know. That's a great question. Do you
I
know what's
mean,
wonderful about that though? Is that for us living in Indianapolis, Indiana, we have the largest convention center in the United States, right? Or
yeah.
in North America. So what it says is if it gets that big, like we're
Come
the
on,
only place.
come on over here.
Come
We
on
don't
to
mind.
Indy. Yeah, we'll be there. I mean, we're the only place that can house an event of that size and really do it comfortably, and that's awesome. That's super exciting.
As long as you don't go out at night,
Yeah, well, there's that too.
the crime won't take over. But
Yeah,
anywhere else, you're good, bud.
it just
Come
depends
on
on where
here.
you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
but okay, so we've talked about a lot of the positives, and that's awesome. Actually, let me talk through these winning deck lists real quick. So first day was sealed. In this format, if you look at some of the decks, and most of what the pros were building before this GP, all the decks kind of degenerate down to 5-color good stuff because there's enough fixing to just play your most powerful cards.
Yeah.
So day one, it wasn't really interesting to look at. But the drafts themselves are actually very interesting. Um, all the different pods had, pro players playing in them. Um, and if you can go back on YouTube and watch a lot of the top 8 drafts, and I would highly recommend doing that. There's a couple on Channel Fireball, and there's a lot on the actual official Magic YouTube. But what I noticed is if you actually look through these top 8 deck lists, one, two, three of the 4 GP winners were playing blue-white affinity. So in their pod, they were able to draft just awesome blue-white affinity decks, and not even like super powerful stuff, just like good cards. Like Yuki Matsumoto at Chiba, won Grand Prix Chiba. Just playing the basic stuff, playing like Court Homunculus. Core Duelist is a good one to have. Mirror Crusader is good, but it's not like amazing in this format. Basic guys like Sunspear Shikari, Tajnar Swordsmith to get your equipment, Somber Hover Guard and Cumulox to take advantage of the affinity stuff. Blinding Soul Eater, which is a bomb, by the way. It's a 1/3 for 3 colorless mana. It's an artifact creature. You can pay a white or 1 Phyrexian white, basically, to tap it and tap down their best creature. Really, really, really good. Just basic stuff like that. He had a Spectral Procession, which I'm sure did a lot of work. Um, but anyway, so looking through this deck, I'm like, okay, well, that's a pretty typical blue-white deck. I'm glad he did well. I'm sure he played well and got there. And then I go to the next deck, and it's Grand Prix Vegas. It's Aaron Lewis's deck. And lo and behold, he's playing blue-white affinity. He, too, has a Mirror Crusader. He's playing other stuff like like Air Servants and stuff, really good blue creatures. Cloud Elemental, another Spectral Procession we see here. 2 Arrests, which is, premium removal, a mana leak or a man, very good. Of course, he in his deck had an Indomitable Archangel, which is a card you should always draft if you want to win your pod, because it's a 4/4 flyer for 2 colorless and a white, so 4 mana. Um, and it has Metalcraft, which says artifacts you control. All artifacts, whether they be creatures or not, have Shroud as long as you control 3 more artifacts. So then the only way for your opponent to kill your stuff is to, block your creatures, basically. That card just kind of shuts out games. So I'm sure he won a couple of them that way, too. Just sitting at the table or at the table next to him, Scott Markison wins, lo and behold, with another blue-white affinity deck. I mean, this dude's just playing Darksteel Citadels, Flayer Husks, not even that good outside of the affinity deck. Cranoplating, which of course is insane. In as far as rares go, the only thing he had was a Lodestone Mirror, which is really good. Like, it's really good. You can untap artifacts you control and give it +1/+1 for each artifact that you tap this way. And it has Trample. So it's a 4/4 for 2 that just gets bigger and bigger the more artifacts you tap. But again, just a well-built blue-white affinity deck. Nothing super special outside of that. And he got there, man. And the only deck that wasn't that was David Vergoni's Grand Prix Utrecht deck was a blue-green proliferate deck, and it had a little bit of domain things going on because he was able to play cards like Sphere of the Suns, and I believe he had the Alloy Mirror, to get some of those other colors. So he wasn't really playing 5 colors, but he was splashing some good cards like Spread the Sickness, and I guess that was and a Sun Lance, which is a decent removal. But other than that, he was on just kind of the play my big stuff, ramp into an Ulamog's Crusher plan. Interestingly enough, he also had a Mirror Crusader. So that's 3 of the top 4, or 3 of the 4 GP winning decks all had a Mirror Crusader. So there's an interesting trend. But yeah, so I mean, if I draft this again, my eyes are going to be wide open to blue-white. I don't know if I'm ever going to play it again, but if I do, obviously this deck has legs. So
hey, if any of you guys want to send us, we'll draft it and make a video of it for you guys if you ever want it.
Heck yeah. If you want to fund online any draft that you want made specifically for you, make sure to reach out to us and we can do that, and we'll probably put it on stream. You can draft with us, or if you're really interested for whatever reason in sending us any packs to either crack on the show, or to actually just play out and build you some pools, and we'll dedicate that to you and do that. That is certainly something we are willing to do. So always have that in the back of your mind. But it looks like Modern Masters Weekend was a blast. A lot of people who went and didn't even play events. I know a lot of people were there just hanging out, having a ton of fun at these different sites. And all things considered, it was a major win on Wizards' behalf. So kudos to them
In the city of Las Vegas.
in the city of Las Vegas. I mean, they're having an amazing time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. Like I said, I would highly recommend going back and watching some of these drafts. They were pretty cool. Again, the sealed wasn't that great, but the drafts are cool. Um, but the thing I want to talk about before we kind of wrap up here and we do this last little bit is that Modern Masters as a whole has not seen a lot of growth in its value. Overall, there's really no value. I mean, for boxes being at $240, you really have to get really lucky and open the best of the best stuff to make any sort of return on your investment.
Yeah, to me it's just it's very just not worth it right now. And um I don't think shops are really selling as much as Modern Master as they were hoping for.
Yeah.
So with that happening, if you're really interested in buying a box, I'd wait,
Yeah, I would too. I mean, we've
Um
seen across the nation shops having a problem moving their stock, right? And most shop owners, and I've seen a little bit of information on this, are able to reorder at this point. They put in their first orders, and now we're finally coming up to the point, a couple weeks later where they can order a second round, right? And not to be confused because it's not a second printing, so don't get us wrong, don't misinterpret that. But they are able to order more now, like they weren't before this week. And I'm not so sure that they're going to want to do that at all. Like, I see no incentive for them to want to order more product because no one's buying it.
my thing is how much additional supplies inventory does WotC secretly have
Yeah,
sitting in their building, and what happens when these shops realize that these boxes aren't going to sell
totally.
themselves? What is WotC going to do? Just start discounting them even more just so they can generate more revenue?
Right, or at
Since
least recoup some of the costs, yeah.
to keep in mind, this is the only box opening for quarter two.
Yeah, that's insane as well because, yeah, Origins is the next set that's coming up, and that's not coming out till July, so.
So I mean, it's interesting, and I would love to buy a box of Modern Masters, but to me, it has to be for the right price. Our local shop just recently dropped their prices to 220, if I'm
Ugh,
correct,
can you
with
imagine?
$20 of store credit with it, which
Yeah.
essentially is buying it for 200 before taxes. But to me, like, unless we see stuff in the sub 200s, even lower than 200, I will not snap by, because like even if the EV value is still at the 240 range, to me, like, we're buying a product that may well be slightly played when you open it because of the fact that the cards are not holding too well in the packs. So you may open a Goif, but it
Oh,
could
you
just,
mean you're scared about like the quality of cards,
yeah,
that just physically that you're going to open? Yeah, I
yeah.
mean there is that scare. I mean you're 100% right. I mean the fact that they kind of screwed it, screwed the pooch with the way they've done the packaging. There's a good chance, yeah, you open a foil Tarmogoyf that has glue gunk all over the back or is torn up at the top just because it's bounced around in the pack. Like that doesn't give people a lot of incentive to buy this really expensive product. Like if they're buying it for the price of a normal pack, maybe, but if they're buying that and there's that scare for $10 a pack, probably not. Like they're probably not going to invest.
But
And,
it's okay. You can turn in that pack with the foil Goif with gunk
yeah.
all over it for a new $10 pack that won't have a foil Goif in it.
Yeah, but they'll send you a new booster pack. I mean,
Yeah,
they have come out and said that, which is good on them. I mean, they
yeah.
should, but it's it's still they're never going to win back the people that they have, now disillusioned, and that's too bad. But
Which we really didn't mention this, but have you thought of like you just think about the resealing of packs, like
Yeah, there's a
how
bit of
the
that too.
um I don't think we've ever had it to where people could actually get away with it.
I mean, there's been times like when the Paxes were like waxy, like for Alpha and Beta when they first came out, people were trying to do that. But you're right. There's been some videos on YouTube and some people writing about it on Reddit where you can actually like use a blow dryer to take the glue off of these packs and look through the pack, put it right back, and then just like super glue it back together, and there's not much of a difference, which is wrong when you shouldn't do that. But again, that you're right. That does not instill consumer confidence, and people are even less likely having that knowledge to buy these packs these booster packs at $10 per pack. That's just it's just not smart for people to do that, especially people that only have a limited amount of money to spend on this kind of stuff. They're just not going to do it. So
So if you're listening, Watsy, what will make us happy? Drop the prices to $5 to $7 a pack.
yeah,
That
$5.
will
Yeah.
you want your inventory sold, like do that. You will make the nerds happy, and we will forever rejoice you.
It's also a warning to people who are listening to this. Don't buy loose Modern Masters 2015 booster packs off eBay. Don't do it.
No, please
Or
don't.
Amazon or anything. Don't do that. Please don't buy loose packs because it's so easy to mess with them. Just don't do it. Um, and anyways, that's really enough about that. I mean, hopefully we've scared you enough to not want to do it unless you get it at a good price. Maybe at $200, I might get one just to play with friends, right? If it was actual just $200, I might do that. Um, but I don't know. Even then, like I don't know if that one time drafting with 8 people is enough of an awesome experience for me to spend $200. Maybe. Um, and for those of you who play Magic the Gathering online, it released last Friday, and events are firing right now for 25 tickets. Which, as far as tickets go, that's actually not that bad.
No.
That's actually a decent price. So you're going to see a lot more people opening this online than you probably will be in real life. So keep an eye out on streams doing that. I don't know if we're going to do one for our stream, but we might. I don't know. Um, but that's something to definitely look forward to.
Yeah. Is it sealed or is it draft?
Sealed is going to be, it's like 55 tickets, and draft is 25 tickets. So,
No thanks.
but again, that's again for Modern Masters and for them just being tickets and not real money. Like 25 tickets isn't that bad for that kind of event.
For 55 ticks, I want to hold the card hold the sadness of me not making my
Yeah,
money back.
that's a good point. I'll give you that. But anyway, so that's Modern Masters 2015. We spent a lot of time talking about it, but if you plan to enjoy it, let us know how it goes, and if you want to play with us, also let us know, and we'll make that happen. So before we get out of here, Nick, let's do some really, really quick finance picks and kind of help the listeners make their game more affordable using kind of our knowledge of the game and the information we currently have. So what are you thinking, man? Like, what's going on this week? What's hot? What do you wanna buy some of to try and sell or trade later?
Well, this may actually just sort of ruin what your pick is.
Oh no.
But anybody who is interested in these modern staples that have been reprinted into Modern Master 2015, you should look, and you're wanting them for a deck, you should look into buying them within this week into next week. Um,
Nice.
because they will be hitting an all-time low this week, and with this massive GP set of GPs going on, a lot of these vendors have bought out a lot of these cards, such as Tarmogoyf. I think I saw a picture of Aether Games with 150 Goyfs
Hmm.
holding them, and they were buy listing at great prices. Don't get me wrong; they're not trying to screw over the Magic players, but they were offering, I think, 130,
Yeah,
even
insane.
even up to 140 cash, not even in-store credit, $140 cash. And when it's
That'll
only
pay for
going
your
for
hotel
100,
room.
yeah, they'll pay for a night at a hotel room, like a crappy Las Vegas hotel. But like, just like they're doing, I mean, think of it this way: vendors are not buying cards to lose money. They want to jack that price up. So if you're looking into getting Goyfs, if you're looking into getting any of these high dollar Modern Master cards, you want to buy them now.
Yep.
It's up until probably next week, early next week, because they will buy it. They have already bought a lot of them from this weekend, and they are planning to raise that price of Tarmogoyf back up to $200 plus.
Yeah.
And with so many new Magic players entering the modern scene, you have a taste of the modern. You don't want to, leave a bitter taste. You want to have that taste again.
Oh
And if
yeah.
that means paying for $200 Tamagoys, yes, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And Magic players have always been willing to spend the extra money for it. And it's sad because, MTG Finance, we want to make the cards more affordable. But when vendors throw so much money into it, we can't really prevent it from happening.
Right. I mean, they just have the power and the weight to influence the market.
Yeah.
But I 100% am behind what you're saying. I mean, it's very clear, right, based on the volume of product that was A, opened, right, and then B, purchased. So those are two very important things to keep in mind, right? Is that over this weekend of those 4 different events, there was so much product opened that matters by the people who are actually interested in this product, right? So those are mostly people who are going to open this product like ever, like period in general. Like they were all these events and they opened what they wanted to open. So that's a very huge influx into the supply pool, which economics would tell us all those prices would then drop because there's so much. But you brought up the amazing point that that's point A, right? But point B is the fact that so much of that was purchased by the people who have the power to influence the market. So what you should be aware of is these people now own the majority of that product and can set the price wherever the heck they want. And the fact that so many new people you're right, have been bitten by this Modern Masters 2015 bug and want to play the format, they are aware. They are 2 steps ahead of those people because they understand that now they can set the price at whatever the heck price they want because those people will do whatever it takes to play this format, and they are taking advantage of that fact. And more power to them for them to, again, have the resources to make that happen. So in this next week before they get all their inventory up and running and repriced and ready to be, kind of unleashed upon the market, now is the time when you need to buy these cards at their most depressed prices, at their absolute floors. And yeah, you're 100% right. I cannot agree with you anymore. So
It's sad because I'm always looking to get into the modern format, but unfortunately we do not have the power to tell people to not sell their cards because vendors are going to profit off of it. But
yeah,
don't get me wrong. If you sold your Tarmogoyfs or your cards in order to pay back some of the lost money you lost in Vegas, good for you.
that seems correct. Yeah.
It's correct. But we don't have the resources in order to hold on to $20,000-$30,000 of cash
Hmm.
just sitting there waiting to buy up your cards.
Yeah, man.
So just be prepared. Anybody who's out there that's like, oh, I'm gonna wait, a couple of months because Tamagotchi are still gonna be cheap. They will not be cheap. They will be back to around the price that they were previously at. I'm gonna say around the 180s, 190s area.
Totally right. Yeah. That was an awesome pick, man. That's you. I really hope if you guys take anything from that podcast is to jump on that advice. And right before we go here, my finance pick was kind of along the same lines, but more a little more focused. Um, I think the cards to jump on board right now are any of the cards that are in the typical modern affinity list that were not released in Modern Masters 2015. So there aren't very many of them, but we're talking about Master of Ethereum. Arcbound Ravager is not one that you'll see. Um, those are 2 that you absolutely can jump on now because this is the most accessible deck in the format that's still playable, that still has a chance against the field. And so with all these people jumping into the format, ripping open a Mox Opal or 2 in their Modern Masters draft and saying, oh, well, this is a deck I know is cheap and can get into, you need to be ahead of that curve and owning as many Steel Overseers, Arcbound Ravagers, Masters of Ethereum as you possibly can. Chalice of the Void is also a decent one. It's main deck some of the time not, but again, it's not in Modern Masters 2015, so it's a decent target. Blinkmoth Nexus has already gone, Inkmoth Nexus has already gone way up because it's not in Modern Masters 2015, but it's still relatively affordable, and you can trade into them as a decent price. And it's only going to continue to go up because it's not in, or because it's also an infect. But But yeah, anyways, that's definitely my pick. Any part of the affinity deck that you can trade into or you see or you can get your hands on, I would be in as this kind of wave of new players tries to enter the format. So
I was just gonna say, and that's we've already started to see that deck even going up just because of
yeah,
the ink moth spike.
totally.
So I mean, I could very well believe that Steel Overseer or
Yeah,
even Chalice of the Void may see even a bigger boost in price. I see even the sideboard stuff, a lot of that
yeah,
stuff could go up alone. Um, so, I mean, this is currently the cheapest deck in Modern that still stands as a high-level deck, but only time will tell before, people buy it out
yeah.
or,
Before it gets truly prohibitive. Yeah,
yeah, or something gets banned.
totally.
You
Yeah.
always have to think about that too, is that bans can always play a role in it.
Okay, man. Well, we've actually taken a bunch of time today. This is a lengthy one, and it's good because I know we've been out for a little bit, and I know we want to get you guys as much new content as we can. And we made a pretty long podcast without any constructed information. So I think that as listeners, hopefully gives you guys a little bit of confidence that we can do this in this new format. And it kind of, is opening my eyes now to the fact that we really can focus in and still come away with tons of content. So that's super exciting. Um, is there any closing stuff that you want to talk about, Nick, before we roll here?
Um, Make sure you leave a like or make sure you leave a comment of what you thought of today's podcast. We're definitely open to anything, all your feedback, and we're appreciative that you are taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I said it before. The most valuable thing you can do for us is provide us feedback, and we really, really appreciate it. So, don't forget to enjoy Magic 2015 while you can, as if it's affordable. Buy the cards while you can, while they're affordable. Um, and until next time, don't forget to keep playing better Magic. Thank you very much.